Good evening. Welcome to WSBI, your resource for success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring women-owned businesses from across the country. And now, for your host, Kimberly McLemore.
All right, good evening and welcome to WSBI, your resource for success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring entrepreneurs and women-owned businesses from across the country. I am your host, Kimberly McLemore, CEO and founder of the Women's Small Business Initiative, LLC, and award-winning author. Welcome to another night of sharing. With us, we have Alison. Alison is a seven-figure entrepreneur and the founder of the Get Your Pretty On website and creator of Outfit Formulas, the #1 online capsule wardrobe building program in the world. She's served over 40,000 women through the Outfit Formulas program and has attracted an audience of millions to the GYPO website. As a former engineer, she knew there had to be an easier way to get dressed every day, so she created Outfit Formulas, a foolproof system to build your wardrobe and create outfits. An author and life coach, Alison is a thought leader in the personal style and confidence arenas. She's been featured in Forbes, Business Insider, Redbook, Life, and Style magazine, and on Good Morning Texas. Her book, The Ultimate Book of Outfit Formulas, was released on September the 14th of this year. So welcome to my platform, Miss Alison Lambadas. Hey, Alison, how are you?
Thank you. I'm great, Kimberly. How are you?
I am doing great. I am so excited to get this thing rocking and rolling. I mean, what you have, I have never heard of. And so it's just like astonishing to think that, wow, this is really exists and you are as phenomenal as you are. By reading for what I've read in your bio and the research I've done, I'm like, wow, is all I can say.
It's been a wild ride, but one that's been just crazy fun and challenging, but worth every step of the way.
Well, I'm sure it has. But before we dive into some of these questions and all this great information you're going to share with the listeners, why don't you tell my listeners a little bit more about who Alison Lambadas really is?
So I'm a mom of three, and I'm a recovering yoga pants addict. So the fact is, I still spend a lot of time in my yoga pants, let's just be honest. But really, that's how I started my platform, Get Your Pretty On, back in 2012. I had spent 14 years as a telecom engineer, and I got the opportunity to work from home, which was amazing. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of us had that opportunity during the pandemic, and it was great at first. It was all sunshine and rainbows, throwing in loads of laundry between conference calls, you know, feeling like I was really kicking butt at home and kicking butt at my job. And then a few months into it, things just really kind of started to spiral downhill. I started noticing small changes at first. You know, I wasn't getting dressed on a daily basis. I just threw on some faded yoga pants and a sweatshirt, pulled my hair back in a ponytail, called it a day. And, you know, that led to me not really working out, even though I had on workout clothes, but, you know, then I stopped wearing makeup. You know, I stopped eating healthy because I wasn't working out, had on stretchy pants, didn't care anyway. So all of these things just really kind of had this snowball effect over time where I was in this place that I just didn't feel like I was being a great mom, a great wife, a great employee. My self-care was completely non-existent at that point. And I just woke up one morning and thought, how did I get here? Like what changed? And more importantly, how do I turn this around? I knew that, you know, going on a diet, losing weight, reinventing my entire wardrobe, all of those things were going to take time. But the only thing that I knew that was tangible and a quick fix, one step that I could take right away, was to just walk into my closet and put clothes on again, real clothes, get a shower, put on makeup, put on real clothes, and feel like a human being again. And when I did that, that's when everything turned around for me. And I felt the power, I felt the motivation. And that day, I can honestly say that it was just such a light bulb moment. I got in the car that afternoon, picked my daughter up from school, and she hopped in and she looked at me and said, "Mommy, what happened to you today?" And I said, "What are you talking about, Aubrey?" And she said, "Well, you look pretty." And when she said that to me, you know, my heart just melted. And I realized, like, this isn't just affecting me anymore. This is I'm a role model, and I'm showing my daughters what it means to take care of yourself too. So that was really the reason why I started blogging, simply as an accountability partner at first, but also a way for me to share what I was learning.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured even if no other woman ever read this blog that I created, at least it was something I was doing for myself, and it was a form of self-care and a way for me to just really get dressed every day and have something to get excited about again. And that's really where the journey began.
Wow. Well, it's amazing how all this happened way before we had got stuck into our homes over a year ago. And of course, now we're still kind of fighting this scenario as we're currently talking now. Everything is kind of flip-floppy. Nobody knows 1 minute whether you're going to be in the office or you're going to be out of the office.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm sitting here, I'm laughing and thinking to myself, it kind of sounds like me, but I don't have a problem with working from home. And I think for the first time in my life, I'm like, oh gosh, I love being in these sweats every day and these t-shirts. But then at the same time, the way that you're saying, and I'm thinking, there's days I'm like, well, let's see, what am I going to wear today? I don't even know how to dress up, even though I'm looking at my closet and I still have all these tags on clothes that I've had for more than a year, because I don't need to go to work and sit in the office and, be dressed up per se every day. So, it does, it kind of puts you in a whole different scenario. And then of course too, I think, everybody's lifestyle and their livelihood is very different. And, you have younger kids, and I'm sure a lot of other women that you worked with, some of them don't, some of them do. But, when I hear your story, I'm like, wow, yeah, it has been a change, and you've experienced it before we had all of this happen to us. Talk a little bit about the journey beyond the business, and when you first started, before you even got into the business. You said you were an engineer, a former engineer, and so you worked, you got up and you got dressed every day. But talk about everything that you had began before you realized that you had to start working from home, and your life changed from there. So talk previous to that.
Yeah, so my corporate past life. I spent 14 years as a telecom engineer, and I always felt like a square peg in a round hole, if I'm being honest. It never felt like a great fit for me. I do have a tech side. I'm very creative, but I also balance that out. I'm what they call a golden brain, which is somebody who is equal parts left and right brained, which is kind of unusual, but it's a cool thing to be, because it works really, really well as an entrepreneur. It doesn't work so well when you're working in a corporate job. So I never really felt like that was my passion. And I was always looking for, trying to engage into what I was passionate about. I took acting classes, and I acted professionally for 10 years in Dallas, overlapping with my 14 years as a telecom engineer. And I tried things. I just kept throwing things against the wall and seeing what would stick. I ran small businesses out of my house on the side. I always felt like I had some kind of, side hustle going on, basically, in addition to working as an engineer, because I just never felt truly fulfilled in that job. I needed the job. We needed to have two incomes in our family, but I just didn't have the passion for it. And I knew that there had to be something else out there. And that's really how the seeds of being an entrepreneur got planted. I got my life coaching certification, and I thought, hey, maybe this is my path. I had a degree in psychology. So I started coaching, and I loved it. I felt like I was really able to help women specifically find their purpose. I was guiding them through with business coaching, with life coaching, and it was really fulfilling for a while. But I also realized that, in my heart, I knew that there was something more, that there was a bigger way for me to reach women, other than working one-on-one with them. But I just could never have envisioned that I would take what started out as a hobby, quite honestly, with Get Your Pretty On, and then turn it into a seven-figure business that it is today. But I think that the moral of the story is always trust your experiences, because every single experience that you have is being woven together into the tapestry of something that you can't even see right now. But one day you're going to step back and look at that tapestry and say, now I understand, because this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's exactly how I feel right now.
Right. And that's exactly what I was sitting there thinking, that your formula, that you have the path and the journey that you have gone on, is exactly where it's led you at today. And it's just phenomenal how all those experiences that, like you said, you felt like you were just throwing things up against the wall, but at the same time, everything that you've done, you've incorporated into the business that you have today. And to be
100%.
And to be a 7-figure entrepreneur, I mean, it's just amazing to hear the story. And, like I said, when you think about getting dressed every day, we sometimes kind of take it for granted because we know it's just a part of the process when we're in our work environments that, you obviously need to come to work looking appropriately, even though we're starting to see more of the slack mentality of how you're being dressed, even when you're coming into your office environment. And I've even seen the change of how people initially act, before, versus wearing a suit or a nice dress compared to when you're kind of in that lackadaisical, oh, I'm just going to wear a pair of pants today and, maybe a halfway decent shirt. And then, of course, I've seen the complete opposite of where they look like they've literally just walked up out of the bed and came into work. So it's like, wait a minute now.
And it really does affect it affects our psyche. There's something called the enclosed cognition effect. It was a psychological study that was done where participants were asked to dress in a white jacket, and they were either told they were a doctor or they were a painter. And they observed how people take on the persona or, the traits and qualities they feel depending upon what you're wearing. So if you're walking into work kind of dressing super casual, like you just rolled out of bed on a Saturday morning, then you're going to probably work like you just rolled out of bed on a Saturday morning. It's just, it's one of those things, like our brain takes all these cues in subconsciously, whether we realize it or not. And we act the way that we present ourselves. And so, what we do on the external can absolutely affect us internally as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, just even with the small concept of, we always feel better when we get a good haircut or a nice new hairdo, even though we are that same person that we were prior. It's just that moment just makes you feel so much better about, whatever you're doing. I even laugh and think sometimes like when my car is dirty on the outside, I'm like, it'll drive better if it's just clean, if I just go get it clean. It's that mental concept that we have every day, that we don't really think about, what we've been following and doing for years. So for now to get into what you have accomplished with this wardrobe building program, talk to the listeners a little bit about how you came up with this formula and how you work with the ladies that, are currently, have been a part of your, helping you build your business, by helping them figure out what they should be wearing every day.
Well, I think it's important to note, since this is a business podcast, that I did not make money for 2 years, like no money at all. I blogged for 2 years. I provided a free resource. And while I was, getting sponsored posts here and there, I didn't really have a business model with the blog. I ended up leaving corporate America in 2013. I took a voluntary layoff. So I did get a severance package. It was for about 6 months. And I decided at that point that I was going to take the blog and try to turn it into a viable business. It took me an entire year from that point where I made a 6-month severance last for almost a year. And I was down to the point where I was facing the fact that I was going to have to go back into a corporate job because I still was not making money at blogging. I had 50,000 page views a month. I built an amazing audience, but it's difficult to make money blogging if you're not constantly trying to sell clothing to people. And I had a different philosophy. I wasn't like your typical Instagram influencer where I was putting clothing in front of women all the time and expecting them to buy new things, because I wanted them to be able to reuse the pieces that they were buying. I wanted to create a program that was budget friendly, that worked for everybody, for every age. I wanted it to be super inclusive. So I knew that in order for me to express my own authentic ideals and the way that I shopped and the way that I dressed, I was not going to make money in the traditional blogger fashion. So I had to strike out and do something different. And that's really when I decided, hey, I'm going to ask my readers and followers, what would you pay for? What service could I provide to you? And I saw a lot of overlap on those survey responses. Women came back and said, I would love it if you could show me, what to go out and buy every season. Like, what new seasonal trends should I add? Or how about, why don't you come up with a list of basic items that I should have in my closet that every woman should have that I can wear year after year? So I took that feedback and I created that list. I knew off the top of my head, I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. This is how I rebuilt my closet. I reinvented it from being my corporate clothes, pencil skirts, blouses, and high heels to something that worked for my new work from home lifestyle. So I had all that information. It was just about putting it together into a package. And the thing that really just came to the forefront in all of this is, as an engineer, I felt like there had to be an easy way to get dressed every day. There had to be some kind of formula or framework or solution that was going to make this a no-brainer, so that I didn't just walk into my closet and stare at my clothes like most of us do and say, I have a closet full of clothes, but I have nothing to wear. Right. So I put on my engineer hat and I thought about this for a minute. I'm like, okay, every outfit is made up of specific variables. You have what you wear on your lower half, which are your bottoms, your tops, you have your jackets or toppers, if you're going to wear one of those. You've got your shoes and you've got your accessories. So this is 5 pieces, 5 variables in an outfit formula. And we can replace each of those variables with a specific value from our closet. So for instance, on your bottom half, you could put on a pair of jeans. You could put on a striped top. You could put on a long cardigan. You could put on a pair of flats. It didn't matter as long as you follow the basic formula of jeans, top, cardigan, flats. Then you could swap out different pieces in your wardrobe to fit the outfit formula. And that's really what I did with these shopping lists that I first created for women when I decided to create the program. Is I wanted the pieces to be able to mix and match easily. And I went back to Garanimals when we were little kids. Remember Garanimals? Yes. They had the little tags on them and you matched up. Like, okay, yes. The lion was the lion and the monkey was the monkey. I wanted it to be that simple. So I created Garanimals for adults, essentially. Wow. And I'll keep going with the analogies, but it's pretty much like meal planning for your closet. I give you a list of things to go out and buy, but I encourage you to shop your closet first. So the things on this list are going to be items like your classic basic items that you're going to wear year round, things like a striped top, things like a white button down, things like a great fitting pair of black jeans. And then you're going to have your seasonal trends. So I do tons of trend research every single season. I try to find wearable trends, not haute couture, things that you're seeing on the runway, but things that actual real live women are wearing on a daily basis.
Exactly.
And I boil that down and I create my shopping lists from all those pieces. And then what I do is I also provide a catalog of items that you can shop for online or you can go in store. So you're free to shop where you want, spend as much or as little as you want, shop your closet first, check off anything that's on the list that you already have, so that when you do go into a store, you're armed with your shopping list and you're shopping with a purpose, because you're filling in gaps on a list, not just walking in there and getting overwhelmed by all the options. And once you have those pieces in place, you're able to pair them up into outfits. So that's the beauty of it. I then give you a whole season's worth of outfit ideas based off of the pieces on the shopping list. So you're going to be able to mix and match everything on that list in at least 4 to 5 different ways, usually more than 5 different ways. So you get the most bang for your buck out of the pieces. And it's really about having less stuff and more style. And when I first launched this idea, I thought, I'm going to be happy if 50 women sign up for this program. 500 women signed up right out of the gate, and it has grown exponentially every single season since 2014.
Wow. That is so crazy. And, and when you sit there and you think about as a, woman, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, it can't just be that hard, but it is. You are absolutely right. When I walk and I did it just earlier today, I walked in my closet and I was like, okay, let's see. I got to go on this trip. Now, what am I going to take? Or what am I going to wear? It's not like I don't have any clothes. And I'm telling myself, you don't need to go out and buy anything. You got plenty in here. You just need to figure out what you want to wear. And it's funny how we do this all the time. And you don't really think about the mixing and match, because I think a big part of it is that we feel like you have to have something fresh, something new, and not realizing that the one piece that you have, you can make it as new and fresh if you're utilizing the pieces that are within your environment. But our minds aren't always set that way. And I think a big part of it, when you think about it, that's how people get rich in this industry when it comes to clothing, is that we walk through the store, just like you said, and we see everything. Even though I may have one thing on my mind when I'm coming through that store, I forget about that and I see everything else that, to me, that's not even on the list or wasn't even important, but because it's there, we have a tendency to want to just buy. And then I come back home and I look and I'll have 20, 30 shirts that are all black. I'm like,
yes.
How did I end up getting that way?
Yeah. I tell the story in my book that at one point I had 15 black and white striped shirts, and I kept going out and buying more because I just would bring them home. I'm like, oh, wait, I already have a shirt like this, because I didn't take an inventory of what I had in my closet to begin with. And then I just went out and bought whatever, caught my eye. And I was a terrible shopper. I would shop the clearance racks. I would bring stuff home. It would still have the tags on it. And the fact is, we only wear about 20% of what's in our closet at any given time. So I always highly recommend that before you try to build a capsule wardrobe of any kind, that you just kind of go through your closet and really just clean out the stuff that you're not wearing. Even if you don't get rid of it, if you put it somewhere else, out of sight, out of mind, just narrowing it down to the pieces that you wear on a regular basis will cut down on that decision fatigue drastically. So you're not just walking in there overwhelmed by everything that you're seeing, but you're seeing what you're actually wearing.
Wow. And, we always hear that it's the recommendation of going through the seasons and throwing out things like you said, or trying to figure out what you should wear. And, and in this day and age, when I think about seasons, I think of things that I like to wear all year round. I don't particularly buy by seasons anymore. So, how do you feel when you have people like that who come to you or just like, like I said, we're overwhelmed. We think we got to go by the seasons. We used to hear, oh, well, you can't wear white in September and after Labor Day and all this nonsense. What do you tell people who are so used to that typical scenario, of you got to follow these rules, when the reality is those aren't really the rules anymore?
No, they're not. There's so many antiquated fashion rules, and it's really hard. I always tell women, you have permission to dress in what feels you appropriate, not what feels age appropriate, not what feels seasonal, what feels you appropriate. And what I mean by that is, if you look in the mirror and you feel confident in what you put on and you have absolutely no reservations whatsoever about it, that is what you should be wearing. And I think that so many of us get caught up in these rules that were handed down to us from our mothers and our grandmothers and what society tells us we're supposed to be, when really personal style is just that. It's personal. And it should be a reflection of our personalities. And that's what we need to be focusing on, is what do I feel like the best version of myself wearing? And I think that if you can answer that question and you can put on clothes in your closet that make you feel like that best version of yourself, that's really what it's all about, because it's about the confidence that comes from the clothes. I tell everybody, yes, I sell fashion solutions, but I'm really selling confidence. They may not see that at the onset, but it's the Trojan horse. Style is the Trojan horse. Confidence is what's coming after that. And that's really what's going to allow you to show up in the world as the best version of yourself and to make an impact and do all the things that you want to do.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that one. Because it's we always feel better when we've got something what we consider fresh and new, but being able to have the opportunity to go back and just look into your own environment in that closet and say, you know what, I have everything I need here. Just that, how am I feeling today? Why do I need to look a certain way now versus what I did earlier? And I think too, with us being stuck again, we're kind of still, some of us are still working from home, and I'm sure you had many, many women reach back out to you and say, hey, I'm not dressing up every day now. So what do we do? How did you work with those women who were stuck in, or at home, still working from home, and they don't have to wear those nice dresses or those pants outfits and those outfits, that they've put together through your formula, because they are literally still working at home? What's your advice on that? I was fortunate because I was one of those businesses that actually grew during the pandemic. And the reason for that is because all of the things that I've been saying since 2012 about building a wardrobe that works for your lifestyle and getting dressed every day and getting out of the yoga pants rut, and clothing being something that we had some control over. Let's face it, during the pandemic, so many of us felt like we didn't have control over so many things, yet there were a few things that we could control that made us feel a little bit better. And one of those things for a lot of women was just getting dressed. And at first it was fun to, get the athleisure and the joggers and all of that stuff. But I noticed a trend over time that while women were embracing that at first, they started to want to get dressed again. And it didn't take long. It was probably around 3 months into it, really, in fall of 2020 is when I started noticing women were like, hey, I want to get dressed again. I don't want to get dressed up, but
I want to find clothes to wear for my work day, even if I never leave the house, that make me feel good. Mm-hmm. And so, that's really where the magic of Outfit Formulas came in, is that I was able to show them casual yet put together outfits that they could wear to work from home and feel great. And that was such a game changer for so many women. It was so desperately needed at that time. And I'm just really happy that we were able to serve in that way. And it wasn't even about financially serving at that point. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I've talked to my team about it. I said, women can't afford to go out and buy clothes right now. Like, we're all in this uncertain time of life. What free resources can we create as a team that we can give them right now? Where can we meet them in their time of need? Because they will remember us later on. That's right. When it's time and things pick back up again, they'll remember us. But it's not about us trying to be in survival mode right now. And my business model has always been, I've bootstrapped everything. And I have always been in a position where we have enough set aside in the business savings that I can cover my team's payroll and for at least a year if we were to have some kind of downturn. And I was just super thankful for that last year when that did happen, because when we launched our spring program, we launched it the day basically that the world shut down. Oh, wow. So I lost 50% of my sales for a season on that day, which I pay my own salary from our seasonal sales. And so it was scary, but things did bounce back 3 months later, thankfully, and we ended up ahead at the end of the year. But just that uncertainty was a lot to deal with at that point in time. And I was super thankful that, we were able to fall back on that, but also that we were able to just step in and be able to serve our community and not have to worry about, if our sales were declining and be able to, just to be able to serve in that way was amazing.
Exactly. I mean, you had to pivot like a lot of other people did during the time frame of the pandemic. And, there are some people who are still pivoting and still trying to, come out from the bottom, and reach themselves up even further because they've lost so much during that time frame. And I think about what you were saying with, women who couldn't even buy clothes. Yeah, you're right. We couldn't buy. You couldn't go in and try anything on. People, they weren't ordering anything. Stores you weren't allowed to go into the stores and do any of that. So you really did have to depend on what you had at home to wear. And, there's still a lot of us who, we were in meetings all day long. So you still have to look appropriate because you're going to be zoomed in or what Teams or whatever, platform they're using, in that virtual world. So I definitely, like that you reached out to and allow those women the opportunity to say, to keep them intact so they didn't feel like they were going to be going downhill, after those few months. They wanted to step back up and be who they were, and that was okay with them, whether they were at home or not. So, applaud you for that, because, everybody definitely needs that sometimes when they're feeling down and out. They have to have something that's going to lift them back up. And if it is wearing a pretty outfit or, like you said, putting a little makeup on, doing your hair, whatever the case may be, we all definitely need to have that in our lives. And then to have you supporting that is absolute plus in the community. And I just love, what you're doing to Get Your Pretty On. I mean, it's the title, everything is just so fitting for what we need in our society.
Absolutely. It is. And pretty, it sometimes can be a trigger word for people who don't understand that it's about so much more than, what's going on the outside. It's really about living your prettiest life in every sense of the word and doing the things that make your life more beautiful. And whatever that may be, you have permission to do that. And I'm giving it to you. If nobody else is, if nobody else in your world is supporting that for you, I'm here to give you that permission.
Exactly. Well, wow. This has been a phenomenal interview, but I have a couple more questions before we shut it down. And, I always ask my guests, I'm sure there's many people have asked you tough business questions and what it means to be in business. What other advice would you give for an individual who decides they want to come into business?
It's so cliche, but it's so true. And I say this probably once a week to someone that I'm mentoring or having a conversation with, but it's really about continually showing up and being consistent. there's no magical formula. Honestly, I've just had to show up every day, even when things were really, really hard. I showed up every day for 2 years when I wasn't making money. I had faith that if I just kept putting in the work and kept being consistent, that there were good things on the other side of that. And, you know, I joke and say that I quit more times than I can count. And yeah, that's true. Like maybe one day at 5 p.m. I would close my laptop and say, okay, that's it. I quit. I'm done. I'm done with this. And then, of course, the next morning I open it up at 8 a.m. and say, oh, well, maybe I'll try it again today. You know, We'll see what happens today, right?
Right.
But it's really kind of having that mindset is what gets you through the tough times. And also, you've got to have passion about what you're doing. It surprises many people to learn that I'm not exactly passionate about style. I'm not a trained stylist, but what I'm passionate about is making women's lives easier and helping them feel more confident. And style is the conduit for that. So don't necessarily focus on what you're doing. Focus on the end product and how you're serving your customers and how you make them feel, because that's what's really going to get you through too. And I have this prediction that I do when I mentor business owners or somebody comes to me with an idea. If they have not yet started their business and the first thing they say to me is, how can I get rich? Or how can I make a lot of money? Or how can I get to 7 figures? I always tell them, you're asking the wrong question. And with 98% accuracy, I can predict that they're going to fail. And I hate saying that, but I even will be honest with them about that and say, hey, I just want to let you know this, because if you don't have the passion to carry you through the hard times when the money's not coming, you aren't going to be able to do this every day. Like, it's not going to work for you. You have to have something, that grit, that passion, that desire that gets you through the tough times when the money's not coming in, because it doesn't always come in right away. And you've got to be patient. And the only thing that's going to fuel that is a passion for what you're doing. So
absolutely. Yeah.
That's my advice.
Yeah. And you're right. If you have that mindset of, chasing money, failure is written all over you, because like you said, the money is not always going to be there, and you definitely have to know what your purpose is. And if you don't put the purpose before the money, because the money will definitely come, like I said, you just got to hang in there. And I listen to her laughing at you, because I'm like, yeah, that's my story about every other day. I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. I don't feel like doing this. People are driving me crazy. And, then I come right back and I'm doing it again. So definitely understand that.
That's the biggest quality of an entrepreneur, honestly, is the ability to quit and restart over and over again.
Exactly. Well, again, like I said, this has been a great conversation. But before we end, could you please tell my listeners how we can get a hold of you? So provide any social media links that you would like, please.
Absolutely. So you can find me at getyourprettyon.com. You can also follow me on Instagram at _getyourprettyon for easy outfit ideas. And my book, The Ultimate Book of Outfit Formulas, is available now on Amazon or basically anywhere books are sold.
Excellent. Awesome. And again, do you have any last words before we end our conversation this evening?
Oh, I just want to thank you so much for having me. It's always such a pleasure to chat with fellow entrepreneurs. And again, just keep going after what you're designed to be. Go after that purpose, find that mission, and that is the thing that is going to give you that drive every single day.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said that better myself. Again, Alison, it has been such a pleasure to have you on the show this evening. And for everyone else, before we close tonight's show, we chatted it up with the GYPO founder, Alison Labatas. So this always leads me to ask my listeners, what do you wish existed for you? Or what are you doing for yourself so that you can feel better about yourself or feel pretty about yourself, whatever it is that you feel that you need to make your dreams become a reality and turn them into actual goals. You can reach out to me at any time at Kimberly, WSBILC at gmail.com. Let's have that chat, because, it's one thing to dream, but if you don't take a step forward, you're never going to get past that dream and go for the things that you want in life. And of course, if you want more of your resource for success, you can donate to support our podcast on the Cash App, in which we will provide that in the information, or you can go directly to www.wsbilc.com. And again, we'd like to thank you all for listening to us tonight. We will be back next week with more amazing guests. Be sure to follow us on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcast. But until then, you enjoy the rest of your evening, and good night.
Good night, everyone. We will be back next Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Follow us on Spreaker, www.spreaker.com/user/WSBI. View our new WSBI website anytime at www.wsbillc.com and on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram.